What's up, guys, and welcome to the Rebalance podcast, where we dive into topics that matter most when it comes to overcoming struggles, injuries, and finding balance in your life. Everybody's idea of balance is that bit different, so my goal is to give you different perspectives, practical tips, as well as expert insights into what it means to live a balanced life. My name is Robbie Cassidy. I'm a physiotherapist and a health coach, and I've been helping people reignite their love for challenge, overcome their fear, and find more balance in their life through the process of self-development. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Robbie here. And this episode of the podcast we are going to look at is a past injury still controlling your life and still controlling what you do or what you think you can do in your life. And the idea of this podcast, or the goal of this podcast, is to really highlight and get people to understand that sometimes experiences, whether that be an injury or it could be an experience with a doctor or a surgeon or even a family member, is keeping them from living the life they want because they have then set boundaries on themselves and limits on themselves because of that experience. And it's actually in a lot of cases like fear of failure or fear is driving that. Now, I have done another podcast on fear just before this one, so I wanted to just fill in the gaps with this episode as well to highlight for some people, because a lot of times you don't realize that this is happening to you. That's the thing. A lot of times, and I hear this from clients all the time, is that they didn't recognize that it was themselves that were in the way because they thought it was their body was fighting against them, or they thought it was because this was the way it is because somebody had told them that. So if you ever have felt like you're being trapped by an old injury or an old experience, this podcast is for you. And if you've ever injured yourself and tried to get back, it's flared up and it feels like you're making no progress, this is definitely for you. Because if you think about a time that an old injury just kept on resurfacing, it makes you second guess everything that you're doing. And a setback like that, it shakes your confidence in ways. And what happens is subconsciously we resign ourselves to defeat. We don't actually feel like we can do it anymore. And what happens is it becomes part of our language. It becomes part of how we speak about things. It becomes part of our daily life. I don't run anymore because it's bad for my back. Or I don't go to the gym and do deadlifts because it's bad for my back. I don't do high intensity exercise because it's bad for my knees. These things, I don't play sports because they're bad for my hips. And it just becomes part of the language that you speak, which in a way is crazy that it can really dominate your life in a lot of ways. And people don't understand that because it's so subtle. It comes in, creeps in on a day to day. Now, we can't let this control us forever. And this is the real goal of this podcast. I want to emphasize for people that if you can get an understanding of this, you can really change it. Like, you can really make a long-term change with this. But you need to get an understanding of how it is playing a role, or how it has played a role up to date. And that could be in the lifestyle that you have right now. Because over time, our vision actually narrows in what we think that we can do. We start believing that there's only one way out. There's one way to do things. And because our vision has narrowed, our friends might say, let's go for a hike at the weekend, and you'll say, no, I can't go for a hike because I can't last that long. I know that if I go for a certain distance or a certain time, my body's going to start giving out and I'm going to suffer for the next couple of days after it. And it's all, we need to think holistically about how this happens to us, because as I said, it's part of your language, then it becomes part of your habits, then you start to get deconditioned and you don't actually do the things that would cause it in the first place, which causes it to happen at a lower rate the next time. So it's not that you can't go for a walk anymore or a hike anymore. It's now that you can't do a 5k walk, and then a 5k walk means you can't go for a day out in the city with your family. And you can see then one leads to the next and they build on top of each other. But the same way that we train this pattern, we can untrain the pattern. And I want, as I talk through this, if it resonates with you, I want you to really think about questions I ask here and how that affects you and how it has affected you in the past. So as I said, we can't let it control us forever. There has to be a point that we have to decide to make change. Because if we want to make a real significant change in our life, it's going to take discipline and it's going to take time. It's not going to be something that you say, okay, right, I want to start going on hikes again, and I'm just going to start going on a hike, whatever, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because you're going to suffer from that because it's such a change in your routine. So what we need to look at is how we can build it up to a point. We can control the issues and can control the pain and control the way the body kicks back. And we have strategies and tactics for that afterwards. It could be something as simple as if you go for a hike on a Saturday, the next day that you make sure that you're going for something light like a swim, or you try to get out for a bit of a walk, that you're not just relying on painkillers to take the pain down, and that you have maybe a sauna session booked in. It could be even a massage booked in, something enjoyable, something that just takes your mind away from it. But it makes sure that you are moving and you're planning on your recovery again, because as I'll talk about in this, you'll see that what happens is when you do these things, a lot of the time it's not that you're re-injuring it, it's that you're flaring off a burn spot on your nervous system. So another experience that has really, I suppose, has cropped up a lot with the people that I work with is that a professional, and I don't really feel that they meant to do this, but a professional has actually told them something, that they can't go running and they can't do deadlifts, or they can't do, sprints or play certain sports because that's going to cause them trouble, or that's going to be bad for them. And then they take it, and unbeknownst to themselves, both sides didn't really realize this was going to happen, is that then they start to avoid everything. So they stop doing the exercise, they stop doing the movements, they stop doing the sports. And instead of having a return date that it's like, okay, stop for a couple of weeks, that return date is for it never happens. And then they don't realize 2 years down the road, I actually stopped doing this. It was actually something I really enjoyed. I just had a tough time of doing it at that time, and a doctor told me that I shouldn't ever do it again. And you can see then it comes into the language. So if this resonates with you, I want you to think about it. Was there a time, and look at, when you're thinking about, let's use back pain as a simple one, because I've been talking about back pain a lot, or chronic or persistent back pain for people, but you can apply this to anything. You can apply this to shoulder pain, you can apply this to knee pain, you can apply this to hip pain. When it kicked up initially and you took a bit of time off and it didn't calm down, and then you went to the doctor gave you painkillers and said, just take those, they will help to calm the pain down, and you said, perfect, that's exactly what I want to do. Then you went to the physio. And in the case of back pain, you go to the physio, they give you your bird dog exercises, they give you a massage, they might put the TENS machine on you, a bit of ultrasound, you do a couple of hip thrusts or glute bridges on the ground, maybe a few core exercises, and you go about your day. Then you go and you rest a small bit more. When you try to return back to what you were doing, the pain kicks up again. So you go back, you tell the doctor it hasn't calmed down. You say the physio wasn't working. This is really a key one here. And then they have to move you down the line of the next thing, because if you look for help in the medical system, they're very good to try to offer you solutions, but you have to understand that there's only certain solutions that they can offer, because they can't offer you they can't give you a solution outside of the medical system. They have to kind of keep it within that. And then you'll hear some people say, oh, it's a conspiracy, they're trying to make money. I'm sure in certain countries it could be, but in a lot of cases I don't really feel that it's as bad as people make it out to be. I don't think it's strictly the person that's there making the decision of saying, when I do this, I'm going to make this much money. They're just looking to hopefully pass you down the line and hopefully get you fixed, and then as a result generates a lot of income for a lot of people within that system. So what happens then is you go back and your pain doesn't go away, so you go back, you get an injection, a corticosteroid injection. Now, the issue with this is these are all short-term issues for something that's becoming a persistent pain. It may not be a persistent pain at the start. It could just be an acute injury, like a muscle strain. But because it's not getting taken care of at the time, and then you have all these other factors going on in your life as well at the same time, that could be like have a really busy lifestyle with, you have to pick kids up, you have to drop them off, you have friends and families you have to meet, you have a load of different occasions or social events that you have to go to. Or maybe at the other side of it, maybe there was actually a significant life event that happened right there and then, where a friend or a family member passed away. Or you had, as I said, that idea of having a child. A lot of people injure their back weeks after having a child or having their second child, where you're really fatigued and you're running around all the time, you're trying to keep everything in order, and then you go to lift something, it kicks off, and you're in a lot of trouble then as a result. And that then becomes, I guess, tied into this system of you're looking for new things. You haven't actually taken down all the rest of it, because your rest of your lifestyle just keeps going. You can't stop it. You can't just put the kids away. for a couple of weeks while everything heals. So you're continuing to work on everything and you're continuing to do everything you can. And you start to fear then that the pain will never go away, that the pain will only get worse, because you're not getting any real answers from the medical system. You're going in, you've people as well, this is the other thing, so they'll say, I've gotten physio, and they classify going to one physio or two physios where they get the same exercises from both physios, the same treatment, where it's a massage, where it's an ultrasound, where it's a dry needling, and they say, I got physio and it didn't work. Physical therapy covers so many different facets, and so does the medical profession, so does most professions, so there's so many other options as well. But once this fear starts to kick in, this is when things start to get a bit more difficult. Because when the fear starts to kick in, our body responds to fear very differently than it does to a lot of other things. Really interesting point. If you miss out on your sleep, if you're sleep deprived, the research shows that your body is more likely to record negative information than it is to record positive information. Because that's a survival tactic. It's more important for you to remember where, I don't know, a pride of lions were back in the day, or a poison bush, or a poison berry, as opposed to it is for you running around having fun with your friends and enjoying times with your family. So when we understand that fear is recorded, fear is taken note of more in the body than it is, or negative experiences are more than positive. And when you add this, because we're really fatigued, everything's going on, and it feels like we can't get over this issue of this back issue, or this persistent pain, so the fear continues to build. And then we have to go, and we go to the next thing down the line, after you've gotten your injections, after you've tried the pills and the stronger painkillers, you have to go to your consultant. Now when you go to your consultant, the consultant doesn't have that many options. They have like your surgical options. They can put you back into the system of trying the physio again within the system, or they can offer you like a lot of surgeons do the surgery. You can put you back in the system, or they can give you like a stronger painkiller a lot of ways, or you would hope that they would try to explain what's going on as opposed to offer a solution straight away. Because in a lot of cases, what's going on here is, and I would say that your physio is probably your best opportunity for them to explain what's going on, because it's more in their line, because they should be dealing with this properly, because it's an injury. It's a musculoskeletal issue in a lot of cases first, and then it becomes a neurological issue after. So they should be able to explain it to you. But when you go from having the doctors, that idea of like a hopeful prescription of take this painkillers and then it'll go away, it doesn't go away. So then you start the physio exercises, it doesn't go away, and now you have this kind of cloud of a potential surgery just looming over you all the time. Now the fear really, really causes that area or that nervous system to get jacked up. Now, why am I bringing up the nervous system? I will talk about it in a second, but it's the key to understanding how these long-term or past injuries start to control, or start to get ingrained and start to control our life. So how do I know this is the case? I've seen it so many times. I know how the medical system works as well. In all of that, in what you were in and what you were talking about, and the system that you went through, I bet you that none of them mentioned this idea of like understanding what your triggers are, understanding the nuances of the nervous system and the role of our habits and how our habits are forming and how they're creating a lot of things. And when you have that, when they don't mention these things to you, they don't mention how much of an effect your lifestyle habits can have on you. Okay, you had the injury, but as I was mentioning, if you're running around with your kids and you're running around, there's loads of different things to do, and or maybe a significant event happened at the same time. As I said, the body remembers the negative experience more so than it does the positive, especially when it's more sleep deprived. What happens to our nervous system is we get these areas of like a burn spot on them. And this is basically an area on your nervous system that has a lower tolerance to pain. So if it gets set off, like as we talked about at the start, where you go for a long hike and you haven't done that in ages, that sets it off, and your body gives you a lot of pain, even though there was no injury. There's been no injury to the area. It's just been tested more so than it had been before. But the body's protective response is pain and tightness. That's your protective response. That's how it protects you. When you touch a hot stove, you don't get these joyful feelings. You get the shock and pain, and then you pull back, burning pain, and you pull back from it. If someone punches you in the arm, it doesn't feel great. You get that diffuse pain in the arm, or dull ache, you could say, because it gives you different pains to tell you different things. But when you get this nervous system that has all the fear around it, it has tried all these different things, every day you're waking up, you still running around, you're not giving the thing a chance to heal properly, and the body just isn't getting a chance to adapt. Normally, the nervous system gets really good at sending these pain signals, and now you have this little area that's a burn spot. But it's never mentioned. I bet you that was never mentioned to you when you went through the different areas. And this is why I'm talking about this past injury starts to control your life then, because you haven't realized, or you haven't been told, that it's not the injury itself, it's not the muscle damage itself that's causing you the trouble. It's actually your nervous system's response to an older injury that was there. So I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, are these past experiences silently dictating what you're doing? Where you're deciding, no, I won't do that in case it kicks up. I like to use the phrase, don't let a bad decision burn you twice. You don't want to let decisions that you have made in the past that were bad, or not bad on your behalf, but things that you didn't realize or you hadn't recognized at the time, don't let that continue to burn you for the rest of your life. You may not have recognized, as I said, that you're letting the experience, or this series of experiences, and I'm using back pain because it's an easier one, but it could be anything for you. It could be what someone told you. It could be someone said that you're no good at a sport. It could be because somebody said that you're not a good singer. It could be because somebody had told you that you don't have patience, or you don't have the discipline to do something, so you just continue to live like that. Don't let that bad decision, or don't let that bad experience burn you twice. At the time it had its effect, but don't let it continue to have its effect down the line. And you may not have recognized this. So it's really, really important. How would you recognize it? Like in the case of the back pain, how would you recognize that the experience, or the series of experiences, are having so much control over your thoughts and actions now? We live like pretty busy lives in a general sense. We're always going from one to the next, or we're doing something, or we're always distracted in some way. And when it comes to our health, especially when we're looking at this back issue, when it comes to your health, you don't want to make any mistakes. So what we do is we put all the responsibility on a doctor or a physio to heal us, and to minimize a chance that we make a mistake. What's up, guys? Robbie here. I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. I want to take a moment just to personally ask you for your help. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you be willing to share it with someone you think would love it too? Maybe a friend, family member on social media, or even if you just brought it up in conversation with someone you know. The recommendation means the world to us, and it's because of people like you that we get to be able to produce this podcast on a weekly basis. So thank you so much for your support so far, and I would love if you could help us reach even more people who could benefit from it too. Really appreciate you, and we're going to jump straight back to the podcast. And this is coming from a guy who is a physio, remember. So I'm not just throwing out random things here. We do, like people do, put all their responsibility on you to say, okay, I want you to give me this exercise, this and this, so it's fixed, so I don't have to think about it. But that's okay at the start. In a lot of cases, like a sprained ankle, simple. You give your exercises, you do your exercises, your ankle's good. Hamstring, okay, do these and you're good. But if that doesn't work and it continues on, that means there's something else that we need to address. And if we don't address that, and if we continue to just do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, it's crazy. So in essence, we need to actually, when you're looking at the person themselves, when you're looking at how this past injury or this past experience is starting to control your life, we need to start taking that responsibility on ourselves. If we can take responsibility on ourselves to start to work on it and be disciplined and start to make change, that's when we can see progress. That's when you'll actually start to notice progress. And then it becomes a bit of a dance in a way between, when you're looking at an injury, it becomes a dance of you and the professionals. They're guiding you along the way, but you still have to lead the way. You still have to own your own kind of recovery journey in a way. You still have to understand that this is up to me. Because I go to the physio on a Friday, I still have the next 14 days to do the work that I have to do. And I still have to take care of my sleep. I still have to take care of my activity. I need to take care of my stress levels. I need to have little outlets that I use. You need to do that because, as I said, they can guide you, but they can't fix you, which is a sad thing to hear for some people. But if you take the responsibility and you take it on yourself, you can fix yourself, and they will be the guide. The power that gives you back is crazy. And when people will often say this, the power they got back when they started back running, and they knew that when they started running that they could see the progress each week, especially after an injury, the power that gave them to say that if I continue doing this, I can make a big long-term change in my life and make a long-term change so this pain isn't there anymore, is you can't buy it. You can't buy it anywhere. And you can't quantify it either. So you need to focus on changing what you can change. I'll change the way I phrase that. We need to focus on what we can change, and we need to control the controllables. And what does that mean? It means being honest with yourself and committing to a plan for as long as it takes. It means being disciplined when it gets difficult and understanding that it will get difficult. You will have pain. That's the other thing. Quick side note, people don't ever say that when you're going to get back here, you're going to have pain at certain stages. Like, they never mention that. You're going to have pain, and it's going to give you trouble until you get over it. The same as when you go to the gym and it's your first time in the gym, it's going to be a bit more difficult, and then when you start to get into the swing of things, it's not as difficult anymore. But they don't ever mention that, and that's why when it's been masked with painkillers and it's been masked with loads of things, it's like, okay, hopefully we can sneak through here. We can just sneak in and get everything right. But that's not the case. There's no free lunches in this scenario. Everything is earned, and when you take on that mindset of it being earned, when you get there, it's so much sweeter, because it gives you that power. It gives you so much control over your life again. It gives you so much control over what you can do. So keeping disciplined when it gets difficult, and knowing it's going to get difficult. And it also means taking control of the situations around you, knowing that it's up to you to go to bed at 10:30, and it's up to you to get up at whatever time you have to get up at. Now, if your sleep is broken with your kids, I understand that. That's difficult. But you can still try get to bed earlier on. Getting to bed and then watching Netflix for 2 hours, even though it feels, this is my time to relax. It's not, in a way, because what you're doing, it is obviously, I won't take that away from you. But if you're going to bed at 11, then you're staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning. You're sleeping for 5 hours. Your time to relax has been it's been way worse for you than what it would have been if you had taken that time to recover for a small bit. So is your 2 hours in the evening more important than the pain that you feel every day on a day-to-day? You can get that back. We could work on trying to fit that in at different times. And that's about becoming disciplined as well. But we do need to understand that. And I don't mean to be a prick when I say that. I don't mean to be mean when I say it. But it is important that there's certain controllables that we need to take care of when we're going through this process, and then in time we can start to get that back. But if you really want to make change, you need to take control of that. And then, as I said, you go back, you consult your physios, your doctors, you say what you progressed on, what you improved on, and what else you need to work on, and they can guide you along that. And you need to start working on the small things first. So you can overcome these issues, you can overcome the fear around them, and you can make sure that it stops controlling you. But to move forward, you have to understand it. You have to understand your fears. You have to recognize the challenges, and then you have to get the knowledge. You have to be armed with knowledge in a way. Armed with the knowledge, I should say. And pave your own kind of path to recovery. You will need a guide to get that. You'll need to be guided along that way, because although you can start improving by going out and increasing your exercise tolerance, you still need to have what you can do to take the pain down when it kicks up, because it will kick up. You still need to have the education to understand your triggers, because there's going to be triggers. And if you just keep hitting the trigger every single time, it's going to feel like you're making no progress, and it's feel like you're going backwards in cases. So if you understand it, and then you understand yourself, get a better understanding of yourself, what you enjoy, what you like, and the interplay between when your back pain or when your knee pain or when your hip pain or your shoulder pain or your whatever neck pain kicks up, the interplay between when that kicks up and what's going on in your life and what you're doing and what happened to you that day or the couple of days before it, and you understand the interplay between that, then you can consider a path that best suits you and a guide that's going to help you along that way. So you do have the power to change the narrative, and you do have the power. In a lot of ways, it's like the hero's journey of becoming the hero of your own story, making sure that you are the one who's taking control of it, you're controlling the controllables, and you're working on everything that you can to improve yourself. So I hope that's all I'm going to talk about today. I hope that makes sense to people. I hope I was able to at least highlight different areas in ways that maybe a past injury is controlling your life, or an issue or an experience that you've had that could be still having a lot of power over you, And if you take the responsibility on yourself to start to work on this, and then you reach out to the right people and the right guides and take the right educational content and make sure that you cover everything, cover all aspects, and you just keep disciplined, keep working on it, understand that it's going to be hard. And then when it gets hard, you say, okay, this is what hard feels like. This is what it meant. This is what it's going to be like. Once you understand that, it doesn't make it as difficult. And then you say, okay, it's difficult now. I tick off these boxes. It's not going to be as bad tomorrow. It's not going to be as bad the next day. And you're paying it forward, as opposed to it always just being bad every day. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate. Send them on to me at info@themobilitytutor.com. That's an email address. You can get in contact with me on Instagram at themobilitytutor. And yeah, that's all for now. Please also, if you know that this could be someone else that this could benefit, definitely send them over the podcast. It goes a long way in promoting it, and I really appreciate it when people do that. If anyone is dealing with a persistent back pain or persistent back injury, I would recommend checking out the Spine Initiative. So spineinitiative.com. I'll link it into the description here. This was a podcast episode off the back of me chatting to somebody as well, and they were like, there's definitely this experience is really controlling me. So if you do have anything that you'd like me to cover, send it on to me, and we can talk through it. But yeah, that's the main thing right now is check out the Spine Initiative. I'd love if you could send it on to a friend, and I hope everyone out there is enjoying themselves. And I'll chat to you all again next week. Have a good one. Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking to learn more about what we do, as well as check out any of the mobility and rehab programs we have available, just head over to the description of this podcast and you will find a link to all the programs there. As always, thank you for listening, and I will chat to you all again in the next episode. Have a good one.